The underworld is built on loyalty, but betrayal always insists on a seat at the dinner table. When a trembling waitress leaned over Chicago's most feared man and whispered that his beautiful fiancée was poisoning his 6-year-old son, the Mafia boss didn't reach for his gun. He reached for his smile. The dining room of Il Signo was a sanctuary of hushed conversations, clinking crystal, and unspoken power. Situated in the affluent heart of Chicago's Gold Coast, it was the kind of restaurant where Michelin stars were expected, and discretion was guaranteed. Tonight, the most important table in the room, a secluded, velvet-lined alcove near the back, was occupied by Connor Moretti. Connor was a man whose reputation preceded him in every room he entered. At 34, he was the undisputed head of the Moretti Syndicate, a modern empire built on logistics, real estate, and darker, less legal ventures that operated in the city's shadows. He was impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, his dark eyes sharp and unreadable. Sitting to his right was his 6-year-old son, Leo, a quiet, pale boy with a mop of dark hair, currently drawing a race car on the back of a menu. To Connor's left sat his fiancée, Camilla Sterling. Camilla was the picture of old money perfection, with her sharp cheekbones, cascading blonde hair, and an emerald silk dress that hugged her slender frame. She looked like a magazine cover come to life. Their engagement was an open secret in the city's elite circles, a calculated merger between Camilla's politically connected family and Connor's bottomless resources. It was business disguised as romance, a fact Connor accepted for the stability it promised Leo. Since his wife Sarah's death in a car accident 4 years prior, Leo was the only piece of Connor's soul that remained uncorrupted. Working her shift in the VIP section, Constance Hayes was just trying to survive the night. At 22, she was an exhausted nursing student drowning in student loans and medical debt from her late mother's illness. She didn't care about the mob or high society. She cared about tips. But Constance was observant, a trait honed by years of analyzing patient symptoms during her clinical rotations. As Constance approached the table to clear the main course, she felt the heavy, suffocating aura of Connor Moretti. He was intimidatingly handsome, but the cold authority radiating from him made her hands shake slightly as she collected the china. "I'll have the waiter bring the dessert menu, Mr. Moretti," Constance said softly, keeping her eyes averted. "Just the tiramisu for the boy," Connor replied, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that demanded instant compliance. "And 2 espressos." "Of course." 10 minutes later, Constance returned, balancing a silver tray holding the rich, cocoa-dusted dessert and the coffees. As she neared the alcove, Connor's phone vibrated, a rare intrusion he allowed only for emergencies. He glanced at the caller ID, his jaw tightening. It was Enzo, his underboss. "Excuse me," Connor murmured to Camilla, pressing the phone to his ear and turning his body slightly away from the table to shield his conversation from the dining room. Constance was standing behind a marble pillar, just out of sight, waiting for a break in the conversation to serve the food. From her vantage point, she had a clear, unobstructed view of Camilla. With Connor distracted, Camilla's perfectly manicured hand reached into her Judith Leiber clutch. Her movements were fluid, practiced, and terrifyingly casual. She withdrew a small, glass vial. With a flick of her thumb, she popped the cork and hastily dusted a fine, translucent powder over the top of Leo's tiramisu. It seamlessly blended into the powdered sugar and cocoa. She slipped the vial back into her purse just as Connor ended the call and turned around. Constance froze. The breath completely left her lungs. Her mind raced, screaming a dozen different protocols. Was it medicine? A supplement? No. A mother or stepmother wouldn't hide a supplement like a thief in the night. Constance remembered the dead, vacant look in Camilla's eyes as she sprinkled the dust. "If I say something, he might kill me," Constance thought, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "He's a Mafia boss. They kill the messenger." She looked at little Leo, who was now excitedly reaching for his spoon, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the dessert. "If I don't say something, that little boy dies." Her nursing instincts overrode her fear of the Chicago underworld. Constance stepped forward out of the shadows. She placed the espressos down first. Connor didn't even look at her. He was staring at his son with a rare, softening expression. As Constance placed the tiramisu in front of the boy, she intentionally bumped Connor's water glass. Constance leaned in close to wipe the condensation from the table. Her lips were mere inches from Connor's ear. Under the cover of the ambient restaurant noise, She forced the words out in a desperate, trembling breath. "Mr. Moretti, your fiancé put something in your son's food." Connor didn't flinch. He didn't gasp. A lesser man would have jumped up, caused a scene, or immediately accused the woman sitting across from him. Connor Moretti was not a lesser man. The only indication that he had heard her at all was a microscopic tightening of the muscles in his jaw and a sudden, terrifying darkening of his eyes. He slowly turned his head to look at Constance. For a second, looking into his eyes felt like staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. Constance swallowed hard, giving a minuscule, terrified nod before stepping back and bowing her head. "Enjoy your dessert," she managed to squeak out before quickly retreating to the kitchen, her knees buckling with every step. At the table, Leo dug his spoon into the soft mascarpone cream. He brought it halfway to his mouth. "Leo." "Wait," Connor said. His voice was smooth as glass, completely stripped of any panic. Leo paused, blinking up at his father. "Papa?" Connor reached across the table and intercepted the boy's wrist gently. He looked down at the tiramisu. To the naked eye, it was flawless. He then looked up at Camilla, who was smiling pleasantly, sipping her sparkling water. "Is something wrong, darling?" Camilla asked, her tone dripping with manufactured concern. The kitchen made a mistake. Connor lied flawlessly, taking the plate away from his son. "I smell almonds." You know Leo is severely allergic to almonds. They must have cross-contaminated the extract. Camilla's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, a micro-expression Connor catalogued instantly. "Oh my. Goodness, how careless of them. Let me call the manager." "No need," Connor interrupted, picking up his linen napkin. He casually dropped it over the dessert, secretly pressing the fabric into the dusted top layer to absorb a sample. "I'm losing my appetite for this place anyway. I think we'll go get ice cream at that spot you like down by the pier, Leo. Does that sound good?" Leo pumped his fist. "Yeah." "Connor, really?" Camilla sighed, placing a hand on his arm. "You spoil him." "And over a simple kitchen error?" Connor looked at her hand resting on his sleeve, then slowly met her eyes. The predator inside him was roaring, demanding he drag her out to the alley by her perfect blonde hair. Instead, he smiled a cold, terrifying imitation of warmth. "I protect what's mine, Camilla. You'll learn that about me." The drive away from Il Signo was suffocatingly quiet. Connor had his driver, an imposing mountain of a man named Bruno, drop Camilla off at her penthouse first, claiming he and Leo were having boy time. The moment the heavy door of the bulletproof Cadillac Escalade clicked shut, separating them from his fiancée, Connor's demeanor shifted from a placid lake to a raging storm. "Take us to the warehouse, Bruno. Tell Enzo to meet me there with Dr. Aris. Now." "Papa, what about the ice cream?" Leo asked from his car seat, his voice small. Connor closed his eyes, taking a deep breath to steady the rage coursing through his veins. He reached back and squeezed his son's knee. "Papa just has to do a quick piece of work first." 30 minutes later, the SUV pulled into a highly secured, nondescript warehouse in the industrial district. Connor carried a sleeping Leo into a heavily furnished back office, laying him gently on a leather sofa and covering him with his suit jacket. He then walked into the adjacent room, where his underboss, Enzo, and his syndicate's underground physician, Dr. Aris, were waiting. Connor tossed the stained linen napkin onto the stainless steel table. "Test it," Connor commanded, his voice vibrating with lethal intent. Dr. Aris, an older, weary-looking man who had patched up more bullet wounds than a combat medic, adjusted his glasses and took the napkin to his impromptu lab bench. For 20 agonizing minutes, Connor paced the room. He mentally replayed every conversation he had ever had with Camilla Sterling. The engagement was supposed to be a bridge between his underworld power and her family's legitimate political influence. It was a business transaction, but to target Leo? That broke the fundamental laws of his world. "Connor," Dr. Aris finally spoke, looking up from his centrifuge. His face was pale. "It's thallium. But it's a highly refined, synthetic derivative." Enzo swore in rapid-fire Italian. Connor stopped pacing. "Explain it to me in plain English." "Doc, thallium is a heavy metal, often used in rat poison. But this variant is designed to be undetectable by standard hospital toxicology screens." "Doctor," Aris explained, holding up a vial of the extracted substance. "If Leo had eaten that dessert tonight, he wouldn't have died immediately. He would have started exhibiting symptoms of a rare autoimmune disease over the next few weeks. lethargy, hair loss, neurological damage. Eventually, his organs would fail. It would look completely natural. A tragic childhood illness. The silence in the room was absolute, heavy enough to crush bone. Instead, Connor walked over to a whiskey decanter, poured a neat glass, and downed it in one swallow. The cold calculation returned to his eyes. "The Sterlings don't have access to this kind of poison," Connor said quietly. "They are politicians, not chemists. Someone supplied this to her. The Falco family," Enzo suggested grimly. "They've been trying to destabilize you for months, boss. If Leo got sick, you'd be distracted. You'd step away from the business to care for him. The Falcos would swoop in and take the Southside ports." "Exactly," Connor agreed. "Camilla is a Trojan horse. If I kill her tonight, the Falcos will know I'm onto them, and they'll just try another angle. I need to know who her handler is, and how deep the rot goes in my own organization." "So we play along?" Enzo asked, raising an eyebrow. "We play along," Connor confirmed. "But I need eyes on her at all times, and I need someone inside my house who she doesn't suspect. Someone who isn't tainted by our world." Connor thought back to the girl at the restaurant. The waitress with the terrified eyes and the trembling voice. She had everything to lose by speaking up, yet she did it anyway to save a child she didn't even know. She was sharp, observant, and undeniably brave. "Enzo," Connor said, turning to his right-hand man. "The waitress from Il Signo. Get her." Constance's shift finally ended at 1 a.m. The rain was coming down in sheets as she stepped out of the employee entrance into the dark alleyway, popping open her flimsy umbrella. Her mind was entirely consumed by the events of the evening. Had she done the right thing? Was the little boy safe? Was the Mafia boss going to send hitmen to her studio apartment? She got her answer a block away. A sleek, black SUV pulled up onto the curb beside her, blocking the sidewalk. Before Constance could scream or run, the back door slid open, and a massive man in a dark suit, Bruno, stepped out. "Miss Hayes," Bruno said, his voice surprisingly polite but leaving absolutely no room for negotiation. Constance's umbrella fell from her hands, clattering onto the wet pavement. "Please," she whispered. "I won't say anything to the police. I swear to God. Just let me go. You aren't in danger, miss. But you do need to get in the car." Knowing that running from men like this was a death sentence, Constance climbed into the back seat, her body shivering violently. The drive took her far out of the city, into the sprawling, forested estates of the northern suburbs. They pulled up to a massive, gated compound guarded by men who clearly weren't carrying standard-issue security flashlights. She was escorted into a sprawling mansion, led through marble hallways, and finally deposited into a dim, mahogany-paneled library. A fire was roaring in the hearth. Standing by the window, staring out into the rain, was Connor Moretti. He had discarded his suit jacket and tie. The top buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing a glimpse of dark ink creeping up his collarbone. He turned as the door clicked shut behind her. Constance pressed her back against the door, clutching her purse like a shield. "You're shaking, Constance," Connor observed, walking slowly toward her. "Let me assure you right now, nobody is going to hurt you. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't be standing in my home. Then why am I here?" Constance managed to ask, her voice remarkably steady despite her internal panic. "Because you saved my son's life tonight," Connor said, his voice dropping an octave, losing the cold edge it held at the restaurant. It was raw, grounded in a father's terrifying vulnerability. "I had the dessert tested. It was laced with a synthetic neurotoxin. If he had eaten it, I would have watched him slowly die over the next month, and I wouldn't have known why." Constance gasped softly, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God. Who would do that to a child?" "Monsters," Connor said flatly. "Monsters dressed in silk and diamonds. My fiancée is working with a rival family to destroy me from the inside out." "Go to the police," Constance urged. Connor let out a dark, humorless chuckle. "The police work for me, Constance. And the ones who don't work for the people trying to kill my son. I can't arrest my way out of this. I have to dismantle them. To do that, I need to keep Camilla close. I need her to think her plan is working." Just slowly. I don't understand what this has to do with me," Constance stammered. "I served your food. I warned you. We're even. Please." Connor walked over to a side table and picked up a manila folder. He opened it, glancing at the papers inside. Constance Hayes, 22, nursing student at Northwestern, top of your clinical class, but you're on the verge of dropping out because you owe $150,000 in medical debt from your late mother's cancer treatments. You work 70 hours a week to keep the lights on in a terrible apartment in the South Loop. Constance flushed with a mixture of anger and violation. You investigated me? I investigate everyone, Connor said, closing the folder and tossing it onto the desk. Here is my proposition. Constance, I need someone inside this house. Someone who can watch Camilla when I am not here. Someone who can oversee everything Leo eats, drinks, and touches. Someone with a medical background who can recognize signs of poisoning if Camilla tries a different method. You want me to be a bodyguard? Constance asked, incredulous. I weigh 120 pounds. I have men with guns for bodyguards, Connor replied, taking a step closer. The sheer magnetic pull of his presence was disorienting. He smelled of rain, cedar, and expensive cologne. I need an intellect. I need someone Camilla will underestimate. I'm going to hire you as Leo's new private live-in tutor and health aide. You will move into the east wing of this estate. No, Constance said instinctively, shaking her head. No, absolutely not. I don't want any part of your mafia wars. I just want a normal life. A normal life drowning in debt? Connor countered smoothly. If you accept this job, your medical debt is wiped out by morning. Your tuition is paid in full for the rest of your degree. You will be compensated $500,000 for 1 year of service. And, most importantly, you ensure that a 6-year-old boy gets to see his 7th birthday. Constance stared at him. The money was life-changing. It was freedom. But the cost was stepping into a world of vipers. She looked into Connor Moretti's dark, intense eyes. She expected to see a ruthless mobster manipulating her, and he was. But beneath the manipulation, she saw the desperate, thinly veiled terror of a father fighting for his child's life. She'll suspect something, Constance argued, her resistance weakening. Why would you suddenly hire a waitress to be his tutor? We will tell her I was impressed by your medical background and discretion tonight, Connor said. Camilla is arrogant. She will look at you, see a poor, exhausted student, and dismiss you entirely. You will be invisible to her. Constance looked away, staring into the roaring fire. She thought of her mother, who had fought so hard for her to have a future. She thought of the crippling letters from collection agencies waiting on her kitchen counter. Finally, she thought of little Leo, happily drawing race cars, completely oblivious to the poison hovering inches from his lips. She turned back to the Mafia boss. If I do this, you have to promise me I won't end up in the crossfire. You have to protect me. Connor stepped right into her personal space. He was so close, she could feel the heat radiating from his chest. He reached out, his large, calloused hand gently gripping her chin, forcing her to look up and meet his unyielding gaze. Constance, Connor whispered, a vow sealed in blood and shadows. If you protect my son, the entire Moretti empire will burn down the city of Chicago before I let anyone lay a single finger on you. Do we have a deal? Constance swallowed the lump in her throat, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. The Moretti estate wasn't a home. It was a limestone fortress draped in ivy. When Constance arrived, the weight of the silence hit her first. It was the kind of silence that didn't come from lack of noise, but from the absence of life. Every maid, every guard, every staff member moved like a ghost, eyes downcast, speaking only when spoken to. Constance was assigned a suite in the East Wing, a room that cost more than her entire life's earnings. She had barely unpacked her singular suitcase, a stark, pathetic contrast to the walk-in closet filled with designer labels, when a sharp rap sounded at her door. Mrs. Gable, the head housekeeper, stood there. She was a woman of 60 with steel-grey hair and eyes that seemed to record every speck of dust in the mansion. Mr. Moretti wants you in the morning room at 7 a.m. sharp, Mrs. Gable said, her voice devoid of warmth. The master does not tolerate tardiness, and Miss Sterling expects a full report on Leo's curriculum by noon. Do not disappoint her. Constance nodded, her throat tight. I understand, Mrs. Gable. The next morning, the morning room turned out to be a glass-walled solarium overlooking the estate's manicured gardens. Camilla was already there, presiding over a silver tea service. She looked flawless, as if she hadn't slept a day in her life. Constance, Camilla said, her eyes sweeping over the waitress-turned-tutor. with an expression that fell somewhere between pity and mild distaste. "Connor tells me you have a background in medicine. A bit of a jump from serving coffee, isn't it?" "Life is full of pivots, Miss Sterling," Constance replied, keeping her voice steady. "Indeed." Camilla reached into a small, velvet-lined box on the table and pulled out a small, amber pill bottle. "Leo has been a bit sluggish lately. His pediatrician, Dr. Holloway, suggested these B12 supplements to help with his energy. I need you to ensure he takes one every morning with his breakfast." Constance felt the blood drain from her face. She knew the protocol. She knew the game. She walked over, her hands steady as she took the bottle. It was unlabeled, save for a handwritten sticky note that read, "Daily dose." "I'll need to cross-reference this with his current chart, Miss Sterling," Constance said, her heart hammering. "I'm sure you understand I can't administer anything without verifying against his existing medications." "I wouldn't want a drug interaction." Camilla's smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a cold, sharp line. "Dr. Holloway is the best in the city, Constance. I don't need a part-time student questioning his expertise. See that he takes it. Or perhaps I'll find a tutor who is a little less meticulous." Constance curtsied slightly, bowing her head. "Of course, Miss Sterling. I'll review his records immediately." As she walked out of the room, she felt Camilla's gaze burning into her back. She didn't head to the office. She headed straight to the garage, where she knew Bruno, Connor's lead guard, was stationed. "I need to talk to him," Constance whispered, pulling Bruno behind a pillar near the luxury cars. "He's in a meeting, miss." Then interrupted. She thrust the pill bottle into his hand. "Camilla just tried to force-feed this to Leo. It's unlabeled. Tell Connor if he doesn't have this tested in the next hour, he might as well be handing his son over to the Falcos himself." Bruno didn't hesitate. He took the bottle and ran toward the main house. 10 minutes later, Constance was in the schoolroom with Leo. The boy was coloring, his head bowed. He looked frail, and for the first time, Constance noticed a slight, almost imperceptible tremor in his hand. She hadn't just saved him once. She was in a race against time. The door opened, and Connor stepped in. He didn't look at Constance. He walked over to Leo, crouched down, and kissed the top of his head. He spoke to the boy in a soft, melodic Italian, checking his color, his eyes, his breathing. When he finally turned to look at Constance, his expression was unreadable. "Go to your quarters," Connor commanded his son. "I need to discuss your lessons with Miss Hayes." Once the door clicked shut, the warmth vanished from Connor's face. He walked to the window, his silhouette dark against the afternoon sun. "The pills were sugar," Connor said, his voice terrifyingly calm. Constance let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Sugar? That's it? It's a feint." Connor turned to her. "She's testing you. She wants to see if you'll report her or if you'll blindly follow orders. She's trying to identify the leak in her own house." Constance felt a shiver run down her spine. "She suspects, and that makes you a target, Constance. You're playing a dangerous game. Are you sure you're ready for this?" Constance looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man beneath the monster, a father terrified for his child. "I'm not playing a game, Mr. Moretti. But if she's testing me, that means she's getting desperate. She's going to try something real soon." Connor walked toward her. He stopped, just inches away, his towering presence filling the space. "Then we'll be ready. Stay close to the boy. Yes? Don't let me down." The following week was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Camilla became a constant, suffocating presence, popping into the schoolroom unannounced, scrutinizing Constance's notes, and making pointed comments about Constance's lack of social breeding. It was clearly designed to rattle her, to make her quit, or to make her slip up. But Constance had an advantage. She was invisible. She used the bumbling, overwhelmed student persona to her benefit. She feigned clumsiness, accidentally dropping things near Camilla's purse, or leaving doors slightly ajar when she knew Camilla was meeting with her consultants. One Tuesday afternoon, while Camilla was hosting a bridge club in the parlor, Constance noticed something peculiar. Camilla's phone had been left on the side table while she went to fetch more wine. It buzzed a discreet, vibration-only notification. Constance, busy setting up snacks, walked past the table. She stumbled, intentionally knocking a bowl of almonds to the floor. As the guests gasped and Camilla rushed over to scold the clumsy girl, Constance knelt down, frantically picking up the nuts. In that 30 seconds, she saw the screen light up. It wasn't a text. It was an encrypted messenger app. the kind that required a biometric scan to open. But the sender's name was visible on the lock screen. The Wolf. The Wolf. It was the name of the Falco family's main enforcer. A man known for his brutality. Constance's heart nearly stopped, but her face remained the picture of humiliated apology. "I am so sorry, Miss Sterling. I'm a disaster. Please, let me clean this up." "Get out," Camilla hissed, her composure slipping. Constance scrambled out, clutching the broom like a lifeline. She hurried to the library, where she knew Connor was reviewing contracts. She knocked twice and entered without waiting for an answer. Connor was at his desk, his face etched with exhaustion. "I said no interruptions, Enzo." He looked up, his expression hardening when he saw it was Constance. "What is it?" "She's talking to the Falcos," Constance said, her voice breathy. She leaned over the desk, dropping her voice to a whisper. "She has an app, encrypted. The sender is the Wolf." Connor froze. The pen in his hand snapped in half, ink staining the mahogany wood. He stood up so quickly his chair clattered backward. "Are you sure?" "I saw the lock screen," Constance insisted. "Connor, she's not just working with them. She's reporting to them. She's giving them updates on Leo's health." Connor didn't waste time. He moved to his wall safe, punched in a combination, and pulled out a sleek, black handgun, checking the chamber before sliding it into his shoulder holster. "Enzo!" he roared. The door burst open, and his right-hand man stepped in. "Get the car. We're moving up the timetable." Connor turned to Constance, his eyes burning with a dark, dangerous intensity. "You need to get out of this house. Now." "No," Constance said, standing her ground. "If I leave, she'll know I saw something. She'll change her phone, change her tactics, and we'll lose the lead. I have to stay." Connor strode toward her, grabbing her by the shoulders. His touch was firm, almost bruising, but not out of malice, out of a desperate need to protect her. "Constance, this isn't a game. The Wolf doesn't negotiate. He kills. If she knows you know, you're dead." "Then she can't know," Constance replied, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'll act like I didn't see anything. I'll be the clumsy, stupid waitress again. But you have to use this. You have to intercept their next communication." Connor stared at her. He saw the same spark in her that he possessed the refusal to back down when everything was on the line. He traced his thumb along her jawline, a gesture so intimate, so unexpected, that Constance stopped breathing. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or the biggest fool," Connor murmured, his voice dropping to a low rumble that vibrated through Constance's entire body. "Which one do you think?" she challenged, holding his gaze. "I think," Connor said, stepping even closer until she could feel the heat radiating from him, "that you are exactly the person I needed in this house." He leaned in, his lips hovering inches from hers. The tension in the room was electric, a storm cloud ready to burst. But just as the air grew too thin to breathe, the sound of glass shattering downstairs echoed through the mansion. Connor pulled back instantly, his hand going to his weapon. "Stay here," he ordered, his voice shifting back to that of a commander. "Do not move. Whatever you hear." He sprinted out of the library, leaving Constance alone in the dim light. She heard shouts, the heavy thud of boots on marble, and then the unmistakable sound of a gunshot. Constance ran to the window, pulling back the heavy velvet curtain. Below, in the moonlight, she saw black SUVs skidding onto the gravel driveway. Men were spilling out, not wearing the Moretti security uniforms. The Falcos were here. And the war had officially begun. The weeks following the gala were a blur of depositions and quiet reconstruction. The Sterling family name, once a pillar of Chicago society, was systematically erased from every billboard and charity board in the city. Senator Sterling's fall from grace was televised, a public execution of a political dynasty, while the Falco brothers vanished into the ether, fleeing the federal sweep Connor had orchestrated. Inside the Moretti estate, however, the air was different. The suffocating tension of the viper's nest had been replaced by a cautious, fragile peace. Constance stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching Connor. He was sitting on the floor, his expensive dress slacks ignored as he helped Leo build a sprawling Lego city. There was no bodyguard in the room, no underboss whispering about shipments or hits, just a father and his son. "He's getting faster at those," Constance said, leaning against the doorframe. Connor looked up, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. "I think I'm okay with that." Leo looked up, his eyes bright. Constance! Look, I built a hospital for the Lego people. Like the ones you study. Constance walked over and knelt beside them. It's perfect, Leo. It even has an emergency entrance. As the boy returned to his construction, Connor stood and signaled for Constance to follow him onto the balcony. The Chicago skyline twinkled in the distance, a sea of amber lights. The FBI finished their sweep of the Sterling labs, Connor said, his voice low. They found more than just the thallium derivative. They found records. Camilla wasn't just planning to take over the business. She was the one who arranged the accident that took Leo's mother 4 years ago. Constance felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Connor, I'm so sorry. Don't be, he said, turning to face her. The cold, lethal mask he wore for the world was gone, replaced by a raw, human exhaustion. If you hadn't whispered those words to me at the restaurant, I would have married the woman who murdered my wife. I would have let her finish the job with my son. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. This isn't a business arrangement, Connor said, opening the box to reveal a simple, elegant sapphire, not the ostentatious diamond he had given Camilla. And this isn't a bribe. Your debt is paid, Constance. Your future is yours. But I am asking you to stay. Not as a tutor, not as a health aide. Constance looked from the ring to the man who had become her world center in a matter of weeks. She had seen his darkness, but she had also seen his light, the fierce, protective fire he kept for those he loved. You're a dangerous man, Connor Moretti, she whispered. I am, he admitted, stepping closer until their shadows merged. But I am a man who keeps his word. I told you I would burn this city down before I let anyone hurt you. That wasn't a threat to my enemies. It was a promise to you. Constance reached out, her fingers brushing the lapel of his coat before sliding up to his neck. Connor laughed a sound of pure, unadulterated relief and pulled her into a kiss that tasted of rain, silk, and a future they had both fought to earn. In the end, the greatest twist in the Moretti story wasn't the betrayal of a fiancée or the fall of a political giant. It was the moment a girl with nothing but a nursing degree and a conscience stood up to the most dangerous man in Chicago. The underworld remains a place of shadows, but for Connor and Constance, the light comes from a bond forged in truth. Some dynasties are built on blood, but theirs was built on the whispered warning that saved a life and changed a heart forever.